Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this press conference. The acting DG will deliver a short statement, after which we will be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Frederick. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At this morning meeting, I informed the Board of Governors that 591 new projects have been received for the IAEA 2020-2021 technical cooperation cycle. The top three priority areas for member states are health and nutrition, food and agriculture, and nuclear safety and security. I'm mentioning these points because I find it important, as I also said in September, understanding very well the nature of our work in this area is important, and we could benefit as well from your understanding and support. Another issue that I mentioned to the board is that we are very close to achieving the overall budget target for the modernization of our nuclear applications laboratories at Seibersdorf. Excellent progress has been made on the ground already. And we've been also highlighting our international conference on climate change and the role of nuclear power that took place in October this year. Not only that participation exceeded expectations, but the key message of the conference was that all low-carbon energy sources, including nuclear power, are needed to decarbonize the energy sector and meet global climate goals. I also briefed the board about our verification and monitoring activities in Iran. And my latest quarterly report covers the installation of a number of more advanced types of centrifuge in Natanz and the resumption of uranium enrichment at Fordo. Also, earlier this week, I informed the board that Iran's stock of heavy water has now exceeded 130 metric tons. We will continue to update the board in relation to Iran's implementation of its nuclear-related commitments under the JCPOA. The agency continues to verify the non-diversion of nuclear material declared by Iran under its safeguards agreement. Evaluations regarding the absence of undeclared nuclear material and activities in Iran remain ongoing. As you know, I reported on November 7th to the board that the agency has detected natural uranium particles of anthropogenic origin at a location in Iran not declared to the agency. We have continued our interactions with Iran since then, but have not received any additional information, and the matter remains unresolved. Later next week, a meeting between the agency and Iran is scheduled in Tehran to discuss this matter further. From my point of view, it is essential that Iran works with the agency to resolve this matter promptly. And I call upon Iran to provide full and timely cooperation with the agency in implementing its safeguards agreement and additional protocol. The agency continues to monitor the nuclear program of North Korea using open source information and satellite imagery. We remain ready to play an essential role in verifying the DPRK's nuclear program if a political agreement is reached among countries concerned. Finally, I also thank the board for the confidence it placed in me as Acting Director General. It was a great honor to serve in this capacity and also as Chief Coordinator of the agency for the past 6 years. I wish Director General Grossi every success in his term of office. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you. So please identify yourself.
Hello, I'm Nilüfer Ibrahim from Iran International. Actually, I have a few questions. You called Iran to provide full and timely cooperation with the agency. What timely exactly means for you? Did you give any deadlines to Iran? The other question is, did the internet blackout during the last 4 days in Iran had any kind of effects on the IAEA inspections inside Iran, or interfered with the work of the IAEA inspectors inside Iran or not? And is it possible that the PMD dossier would be opened later? Thank you.
Thank you. The full and timely cooperation by Iran, it's a notion that was not introduced now. It's a notion that was introduced already at the end of August in our report to the Board of Governors for September board. And of course, throughout this period, in between end of August and now, we kept insisting on that point. Time is of the essence, I said in the September board. And we've been always encouraging through different means, through different steps, through different meetings, Iran to clarify the issues that we raised in connection with this, this situation. It's not about a specific, let's say, time frame, but I would say the fact that I brought the matter to the board on the November 7th shows that in our interaction with Iran, we reached a certain phase where the involvement and the encouragement by the Board of Governors is needed, is important, and that's where we are. Time continues to be of the essence, and that's why I also underlined, including today in the Board of Governors, and 2 weeks ago in the Board of Governors, the importance of clarifying those matters swiftly. So as of today, the issue remains in the same logic. That's why timely and full cooperation is important. You mentioned certain developments in Iran, a blackout of the internet. So far, I don't think we've been aware of any specific development that impacted negatively the work of our inspectors or the safety of our inspectors. So we haven't been faced with a situation where our activities have been restrained for a reason or for another. You mentioned the PMD file. I think that's a matter mainly for the Board of Governors, for members to address it. As far as the agency is concerned, we continue working with Iran in the implementation of the Safeguards Agreement, the additional protocol, and also monitoring, verifying the implementation by Iran of its nuclear-related commitments under the JCPOA. And I would not like to speculate on other matters.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm Nordin Fridi from Al Arabiya News Channel. Can I ask you, when the agency experts identified this undeclared nuclear material in Porto Abad or something like that, and can more generally, would you consider that the JCPOA is now in danger, mainly after Iran entered, let's say, into the fourth steps after Fordo, resuming enrichment in Fordo? Would you consider the JCPOA in danger today?
With regard to the first question, I think the relevant information has been provided to the board and necessary details on our engagement, but it's clear that the particular issue that was brought to the board's attention has a certain history in our interaction with Iran. And we've been looking at this matter very thoroughly and in a rigorous way. As you know very well, the role of the IAEA is not to comment on the future of the agreement of the JCPOA. Our role is to monitor and verify the implementation by Iran of its commitments. And I think we continued, and we will continue to do that in a very faithful way. There were, I think, 3 interim reports to the Board of Governors in between the regular reports. And that shows that we will focus on the information, the facts that board members and possibly JCPOA members need to have in order to judge on their own where the JCPOA is. So I will, again here, I will prevent from speculating the future of the agreement. We have a mandate to monitor and verify, and we will continue to do that until the board decides differently.
Francois Murphy for Reuters. In your opening statement to the board, you mentioned sorry, I'm looking forward, a meeting between the agency and Iran in Tehran next week. I'm wondering who is going to represent the agency there, and what do you expect to come out of this meeting? Anything concrete? And also, Mr. Grossi will succeed you on the 3rd of December. Just wondering what you plan to do next.
You mean what I plan personally next? First of all, the meeting that we announced, it's part of our, let's say, usual dialogue that we have with Iran. We will have a team of experts and senior officials from the agency. The team will be led by our Deputy Director General for Safeguards. And specific details of the meeting will be agreed in the coming period. What we expect, of course, our expectation, as expressed already in the board and in different settings, is to clarify the matters surrounding this particular issue that I brought to the Board of Governors. Depending, of course, on this meeting and other interactions that we will be having with Iran, the board will be kept informed appropriately. As far as I'm concerned, personally concerned, probably this will not be of interest for you when I will decide on my next steps, but if it's still of interest, you'll be able to find out. In the coming period, I'm planning to separate early next year from the agency, and of course I will define the future steps that will be taken professionally as well.
If I may follow up on that, part of the reason I ask is because the US mission to the agency said that it looks forward to continuing to work with you for many years to come. And so I was wondering if that was a hint at some concrete plans that you've told them about.
I would disappoint you, but I would not decipher this myself. So as far as I'm concerned, I think at the right time, I repeat, if you are still interested in that matter, you will know exactly what I'm going to do. But I doubt this will be an interest for you. So.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Can I ask you, which authority can one day decide that it's time maybe to bring back the nuclear dossier to the United Nations Security Council? Is it the IAEA? Is it the member state? Is it the...
Such an authority resides with the Board of Governors and is linked to the implementation of safeguards arrangements in our member states. So the Board of Governors has the authority to judge how a safeguards agreement is implemented by a member state.
Hi, Setsuko Inaki with Nippon Television. Thank you very much for your work till now. We like very much having you here. And I just wanted to ask you that you mentioned that you called for the emergency meeting or the special meeting on the 7th of November because you felt that you needed some further guidance, support from the Board of Governors on the issues which is not directly related to JCPOA, but rather touching on the AP or rather general arrangement between Iran and IAEA. Now, my question is that, can you elaborate a little bit on this? What kind of support exactly do you expect for the board to become? And then also, do you have any sort of idea of what you want from them? And do you think you will get it by this meeting today?
Thank you. First of all, it's good indeed to differentiate between the role of the agency in the implementation of the JCPOA and the particular matter that I brought to the Board of Governors, which is linked to the implementation of the safeguards agreement between Iran and the agency. And it's important to have this distinction because the particular matter that we've been looking at is linked to the completeness of Iran's declarations under the safeguards agreement. And that was already made clear in September. The issue was brought to the board as part of our efforts to make the board aware that this interaction between Iran and the agency needs, I would say, a boost, an encouragement from the board in order to clarify those matters. The expectation of the agency is to be able to clarify this matter according to our safeguards, standards, practices. And verification, nuclear verification and safeguards implementation is not an artificial and arbitrary process. It's something very rigorous. I was explaining it in different instances as well. And that continues to be the case. With the involvement of the board is made aware that a particular matter linked to the implementation of the safeguards agreement is not addressed in the proper way. And I think the message from the board of governors was quite clear, encouraging Iran to cooperate with the agency and to provide the necessary information to clarify, to resolve the matter.
So you don't want any resolution or any sort of concrete actions from the board on this matter? Just to follow up.
Well, first of all, it's not up to the Director General to generate the action by the board. The board can decide itself. The Director General acts under the authority of the Board of Governors. So I will not speculate on what action member states could take. But what is important is when implementing safeguards in general, whether it is in Iran or other member states, whenever we come to a point where difficulties are registered and it's practically impossible to move forward in clarifying a particular matter, using the judgment and informing the board in order to facilitate a solution, an outcome to that particular question.
I don't come very often to Vienna, so this is an opportunity. The agency experts, when they visit Iran, constitute a kind of insurance for the international community that they can verify and be sure about what's going on in Iran. About the cooperation between your agency and Iran, since the Tehran started to diminish its commitment, did you see any change in the level of cooperation, in the level of authorization of the sites, or things are going well between the both sides? Thank you.
Well, indeed, the IAEA serves as the eyes and ears of the international community when it comes both to the JCPOA and also the implementation of the safeguards arrangements. And the IAEA's presence has been acknowledged and properly recognized by the board, by our member states, but also by Iran. So far, I think our interaction, practical engagement, and the level of support our staff receives, our inspectors, in fulfilling our mandate, I think has been positive, and this was acknowledged in the reports that we've been providing to the Board of Governors.
But only in the case of Turuzabad, maybe, you did not get the right answer regarding the undeclared material. And this is for a long time.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I think your question was related to the type of cooperation, the type of interaction we get with our staff, with our inspectors. Of course, when we're looking at this matter that I brought to the board's attention, the context is different. It deals with the substance and how a particular matter linked to the completeness of safeguards, of Iran's declaration under the safeguards agreement, is addressed. And that's why we continue to address this as well, but in a very, hopefully in a constructive way, with a positive outcome at the end of the day, when issues can be clarified and all of the questions can be answered.
I'm Takeshi Tsuchiya from Kyoto News. It's regarding the uranium particles found in the undeclared facility. Do you or does IAEA regard this issue as a proliferation threat at this moment?
I would definitely avoid qualifying the matter until we have all the answers and clarifications from Iran. And in our work, we don't speculate, we want to be rigorous, and that's why we are insisting on a very dynamic interaction to address those matters, those issues that the agency asked Iran to clarify. So when we get all this information, we'll be ready and probably to update the Board of Governors on how this matter was addressed and what was the nature of the matter. For now, it's a matter linked to the completeness of Iran's declarations under the Safeguards Agreement.
About the accreditation of one of the inspectors that was revoked from the Iranian authority, is that matter resolved? Did you get the answers that you needed from Iran? Also, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman said that they are waiting for the IAEA to answer about this incident and to clarify what was the material or the things that the inspectors had with her.
Well, there was indeed a matter involving an agency inspector some weeks ago before the November 7th board, and I brought this matter to the board's attention as well. An agency inspector was prevented from moving freely, from returning to Vienna for a certain amount of time. Eventually, the inspector was back, but I made it very clear in the Board of Governors that preventing an inspector from moving freely when requested to do so by the agency is unacceptable in Iran and elsewhere. And the privileges and immunities of our staff should be always respected. The conversations that we will have with the Iranian authorities in the coming period hopefully will clarify this matter, and hopefully things will become clear in the sense that we did not agree with Iran's characterization of the particular situation. There was a mentioning of our inspector carrying explosives. We've been having and we started our own preliminary analysis, and this, while it's this preliminary and we are still looking forward to discuss the specific matters with the Iranian authorities, there is no indication that would confirm this allegation that we heard about our inspector.
And that was one time, it didn't repeat it for any other inspector? Didn't happen anymore for any other inspector?
So that's one incident, and hopefully this will be the last one. I mean, we don't need another one.